All right, so I can hit go live on YouTube. All right, so I'm live on YouTube. All right, so that's 50%. That's 25%. Nope, that's 33%. Now I've got to get this one working. Got 4 of 3 people on that. I got to send NEHUD. I'm going to do a copy URL. Control V. And I have to do a copy of that. Control V. Save. And then I can go live on Facebook. All right, so that seems to be going. My live stream is an excellent connection on YouTube. I'm going to close that. I'm going to close that. And I need to open my Outlook and go to meeting for my calendar. All right, so we got people coming in on WebEx, which is good. So that means that something worked. I'm not sure why NEHUD couldn't see my WebEx. I'm going to copy this. Control C. I'm going to email that to Mr. NEHUD El Sharif. Home. Email. New mail. That out of there. NEHUD. NEHAD. WebEx. Control V. Send. Eventbrite. NEC 2023 process and ideas. $243. Need to go to online event page and just make sure the right link is there. I know everybody online needs that code for sign in, so give me a second and I will get you that number. 991378. 991378. New slide. Layout. Whoops. Sign in for PDH. Go to www.menti.com. Code is 991378. 99. Sorry about that. That was pretty loud. Apologize. There we go. So there's your code for my WebEx people. If you're looking for a PDH criteria, it's 991378. For those of you who are on YouTube, bear with me here. I'm just getting things started. For some reason, my Facebook did not go live. Try that again. Facebook. Still waiting to see the doctor. Video. Close that. Create an ND. I can close that. I have too many windows open on my pooter. I am going to close that. Livestream home. Close that. And I'm going to close that. Okay, so still 246. Here's what we'll do. I just sent you an email. Just sent you email. All right, we got Daryl Hill on the line. Okay. Class attendance. Logging in now. Oh, I know what it is. Public, save. Don't save. Broadcaster. Manual start. Okay, so let me copy this key again. Gotta love this stuff. Control V, save, and turn that on. There we go. All right, now Facebook is starting to work. Save. Oh, don't save. Oh, crap. All right, so I say go live. There we go. So that's going live. So I got Facebook going. I've got YouTube up, and I've got people dialing in on the WebEx, so that looks good. Let's see if there's any Eventbrite notifications of people who had online event, live stream. There's the YouTube, and then there's the Eaton WebEx. Control C. I am just going to try this. Control V. Sorry for the well, it's not a delay. It's 2:49. You're watching me panic. Okay, nope, that works. So the WebEx link on that is working. On my Eventbrite is working. Switch event. I'm going to close down the Eventbrite. I've got YouTube's not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Open widget. Such user experience. That's 251. The audio streams Eventbrite. I've got a poor connection on Studio. Why is that? Oh, here we go. I'm gonna say hello. Are you guys seeing any delays in YouTube land? I'm gonna start shutting down. I'm gonna shut my email down. Close. Sorry about that. Dadgummit. You know that's loud. Okay, I closed email. Can't close WebEx. I can close Internet Explorer. Not sure if there's a delay. I'll test now. All right, thank you. Okay, so All right, we got 26 people out there in YouTube land. Thanks for dialing in. I'm showing. Oh, I got to show the Menti code. So hold on. Looking good. Thank you. All right, so let's take a look. Got 8 skipped frames. Streamlabs detected skip frames a minute ago. What does this mean? Some frames have not been encoded. This problem is usually due to high CPU usage or unsuitable encoder settings. Okay. I'm going to close that. And, I think I know what it is. My Trend Micro Office Scan is going off right now. Here we go. And look at that. On YouTube before, can you please provide the code for Menti? Yes, I can in a second here. I'm going to do that. Down below, unos momentos, señor. Text, add, title, text description, scroll sign in, add. Okay, I'm going to move that down here, and then I'm going to double click, and I got to put the code in. The code is, enter the code 99 13 78. Done. There you go. So for those of you in YouTube land and on Facebook land, the code to sign in is down below. Go to menti.com and enter 99 13 78. So you should have that. I'm going to just look online to see if I'm actually live on Facebook. All right, so it says I'll be live on Facebook, and it says I am live right now, so that's a good thing. It looks on my screen looks pretty blurry up there. Sure what that means. We're going to be talking NEC 2023 code changes. We're going to be talking ideas. I'll talk a little bit about the style manual and other little details with regard to the layout of the NEC. I got a spam caller calling me right now. You see, I'm okay. Thanks, Nihad, for joining us. Eventbrite, me. Okay, so I tried the Eventbrite. It seemed to work, but okay, here we go. We'll move this over. It says skipped frames detected 22% over the last 2 minutes. So I don't know what's going on there. I'm using a new software, which I tested earlier, and everything worked fine. The only difference right now is I have this Trend Micro Office Scan, which is our company virus scan software, running in the background right now. All right, well, looks like I'm live on Facebook. And I'm going to try YouTube. Well, I'm not going to try YouTube. I'm not going to hit my bandwidth. I'm going to close all of that. Actually, I'm disconnecting that other computer. Don't want to hurt my bandwidth. Okay. And I'm active. Both of those are connected. I should be seeing, and I am, it looks like I am seeing the chat sessions from Facebook and YouTube on the screen here. So that's a good thing. That's working. 99 13 78 is registration. We still got 5 more minutes. How do I go? All right. Thanks everybody for joining in. We're gonna have fun this afternoon, I think. I'm hoping that we will. Looks like we got Ryan Jackson's online, Russ Safried, our chicken switch people. Awesome. Mr. El Sharif, Kevin Jackson, Juan, Diana. Oh boy, you're going to keep me honest. She's going to keep me honest. Daryl Hill is going to keep me honest. Dan Cadigan, Camilo Castro. Thanks for joining us. We are going to have a lot of fun this afternoon because I know if there's anything, if you're into the NEC and you're into all those great things about what the NFPA and the NEC has to bring to the table, you're probably vocal. All right, so Russ, Safri, thanks. Looks like YouTube is working. So David Rose had some freezing of screens. I seem to have an excellent connection right now. I closed some things down. My YouTube stream says excellent now. I've got 40 viewers logging in. Mr. Whitney, thank you. Not sure of the delay. Awesome. All right, so you guys can see the chats going on. Hello again. Yeah, I was on earlier this morning, just checking out the link and making, because I got I'm using a software, Streamlabs OBS. So in Streamlabs OBS, OBS, I guess it's called something broadcasting source or whatever. I don't know what OBS stands for, but Streamlabs is another software company that makes their own. It's an open source broadcasting system or something like that. OBS, and Streamlabs does a lot of things. They make it a little bit more user friendly and easier. So I'm using that. I tested it out today. It looks like I have an excellent connection on YouTube, which is a good thing. And there's a bit of skipping. Joel Van Treese. Okay, well, Joel, I'm not sure what's going on there. New software. And looks like right. Marty Mullins, how you doing? Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. And so I should be Daryl's on Facebook. Michael Bean, thank you for joining us. Todd Stafford, awesome. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so for PDA certificates, again, go to, for those on YouTube and Facebook, if you look down the bottom of the screen, you will see Menti. Go to menti.com, enter that code, enter your information. I'm going to do that at the beginning of this session, which is right now, and I will do that at the end of this session. Which hopefully will be 2 hours from now. Open broadcasting software. Thank you, Pete. Open meaning open source. So which is kind of cool is that it's a nice. It really works well. I enjoy it very well. And you know what? I might even do a little live stream on that whole process. Hey, Felix, good to see you again, my friend. Thanks for joining us. Russ Safri, good to see you too, sir. Okay. All right, so let's take a look. All right, so it is 2:59. If you take a look at the code, for those of you who haven't been attending my sessions over the last few weeks during this shelter-in-place world that we live in, and I know the doors are coming open on a lot of states, I got to rethink my strategy with getting information out there and topics. But in any case, this is a 2-hour session. If you log in with menti.com at the beginning and the end, I don't have a quiz for this one. I usually have a quiz at the end and a quiz at the beginning, or actually a quiz at the end, and I do a quiz the day before. For this one here, since we're talking code changes, I just decided to put a poll out to say, hey, send me your ideas. We'll talk about it on the phone or online. And I did get some really good ideas on this. So they're coming in on this other email channel I have. My NEC 2023 PI at gmail.com. All right, so I got an excellent connection, and that is good. I got to move some things around so I can see what I'm doing here. I take a week off, and I don't know what the heck I'm doing anymore. All right, so it is 3:01. We're going to start this program. And what I want to do first is I put some slides together because I figured it would be a good idea to just have everybody sort of up to speed with. I'm going to try to do something here, so bear with me. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. I'm going to delete this. I want my computer to go haywire. If you want to remove the video, yes. And then I want to add something. So we're going to talk NEC 2023. I've got some good ideas. I want to talk about this whole discussion of the NEC style manual and other things because we want to talk about improving the NEC. How do we do that? How do we make it easier for people to use the National Electrical Code? What are the things that we can do to increase the clarity of the NEC? And another aspect of making the NEC, the National Electrical Code, something that is easy to use and whatnot, is paying attention to the style manual, the NFPA, the National Electrical Code. There's a style manual for the NEC. There's an NFPA manual, guide, practice or style guide. There's all the different methods that the NEC, that NFPA uses to help say what you can and can't do with the National Electrical Code, what words to stay away from and things of that nature. So in any case, I put some things together with regard to the National Electrical Code, just in general. The NEC, again, we have to keep in mind that designers probably use this to make sure that their designs are meet the National Electrical Code, that are safety, have some basic safety principles in place. So we have, it is an NEC, an installation requirement. So you have installers who are going to be using it. You'll have designers who will be designing to make sure that they meet it. They'll be making sure the National Electrical Code to make sure that we install products per their listing. So we have UL standards, like UL 489 is for circuit breakers. UL 943 is a GFCI standard. We have products that are listed against those standards, and there are requirements in the standards that make it so that as long as you install it in an application that's in accordance with its testing, and the testing and the requirements in the standards could be as simple as the temperature that you're installing it in, the humidity levels in the area that you're installing that product in. We test and list products to specific temperatures limitations, humidity limitations, and there are voltage ratings and all of these different things associated with making sure that the products are being installed correctly. That's a place where the National Electrical Code comes in. And also, when we create language to help in the installation practices, which are there for the UL standards, also for other NFPA standards like 70E, etc. We also want to make sure that we can enforce the requirements. So the clarity in the language has to be such that we don't have a lot of disagreements or arguments in the field with regard to how to interpret what the requirements are. So these are areas that for consideration in public inputs. If you see an area of the National Electrical Code that you're reading and you say, this doesn't make sense, I don't understand the requirement to make sure that I'm installing and I'm installing and meeting the National Electrical Code, then there's a possibility that we can add clarity to that language. It may be that that requirement is there to align with the UL standards for the products. It may be that that requirement is there to align with 70E or other areas from a safety perspective. But in some cases, the language it may not be clear. So I look at the NEC, UL product standards, and enforcement as a three-legged stool. We have to maintain each of those. And the way to do that is to make sure that we have good, clear, practical language that's in the NEC. The purpose of the code is for practical safeguardings of persons and property. So a lot of people forget about that. We saw changes around surge requirements in the National Electrical Code, and some people will say, "Well, you know, that was there for GFCIs. We have to tie that to life safety." I don't necessarily agree that it has to be tied to life safety. It could be tied to protecting property because it is in the purpose statement. It's practical safeguarding of persons and property from hazards arising from the use of electricity. So arc flash events, surge destroying TVs, phones, VCRs or DVD players or the latest technologies that you may have, all these electronic technologies. It doesn't, I'm protecting the property. It doesn't necessarily have to say I'm going to save a life because of that. So we have requirements in the National Electrical Code. A lot of the requirements are built around safety of electrical workers, but we also have requirements to help reduce the equipment damage and severity of infrastructure damage. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. So the NEC is comprised, the governance of the language, it ultimately comes from all of you, myself, and others who make public inputs. Those public inputs are considered by code making panels, and there are, I believe, 18 code making panels now throughout that govern the National Electrical Code. If you have your code book available, in the front section of the book, you'll see each of the code making panels, and it starts on page 70-9 is the correlating committee, which is, if you think about it from a hierarchy perspective, you have the code making panels, you have task groups. I would go as far as to say you have task groups associated with, no, you have the individuals, you and me and others. We're at the lowest part of the totem pole. We come up with the ideas. We make the submissions in the public inputs. The next level, you'll have task groups that are either formed by the correlating committee or by code making panel chairs, or you can have a task group or a working group that works outside of the correlating committee or any other NFPA document. There are many organizations out there. NEMA is one of them. They have codes and standards groups. NECA, IBW, IEC, Independent Electrical Contractors Association. And NECA's National Electrical Contractors Association, and then you have IBW, National Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. You have independent groups. I mean, in the last code cycle, I had a working group around Articles 555 around marina safety, and it was the work of my working group that combined a couple articles to one, and we made a lot of changes in Article 555 to the structure and the content. We aligned 555 content with NFPA 303. So we did a lot of work as a working group. So you have all of those individuals out there that either work as part of the NFPA process, appointed by the correlating committee or appointed by the chair of each of the code making panels. And then you have the code making panels themselves, which is what I'm showing here, that these are technical panels that basically debate and review all of the public inputs that are placed in, and they can also create their own public inputs. So a code making panel can say, you know what, this language we get, we think we can improve this language for a lot of different reasons, to pay attention to the style manual, or they may see a technical issue that nobody's commented on, but they know it's a technical issue, and they can create, and they always were able to create That's not just because of the new process change with public inputs. Remember before we had we had uh, we had public. I can't even remember. I couldn't remember. I kept confusing the old style with the new style. Now I can't remember the old way of talking about public inputs. But if just because you don't have a public input coming in from everybody else, the code doesn't mean the code making panel can't make up their own public inputs. So you have the technical panels, code making panels, and then above that you have the correlating committee. And the correlating committees, there are multiple correlating committees. There's one correlating committee associated with the National Electrical Code, but there are multiple correlating committees that govern multiple documents within the NFPA. For example, NFPA 99, which we may, let's say from a healthcare perspective, we know we have Article 517, and it may be assumed by many that NFPA 99 is under the NEC correlating committee, but that's not the case. That's a separate correlating committee. The correlating committee's job is to make sure that we don't step on each other's toes, to make sure that a code making panel, when they make a rule or they modify requirements or make new requirements, that they align themselves with other code making panels. For example, I sit on code making panel 2 and I sit on code making panel 10, which I'm not speaking in I'm not speaking on behalf of NFPA or the correlating committee or code making panel 2 or code making panel 10 or anybody other than myself. Everything's my opinion. I should have made that statement earlier, but I just sort of went into this without my normal introductions. But in any case, the correlating committee makes sure that when panel 10 makes a requirement, say on branch circuit requirements, and maybe it's on the ampacity of a branch circuit, that maybe they don't step on the toes of a code making panel associated with chapter 3 requirements on conductor sizing, or other panels that may have specific requirements. 210.8 is a good example. 210.8b covers other than dwelling units, and we recently made a change around GFCIs and the expanded use of GFCIs, which created a conflict with some of the other chapters in chapters 5, 6, and 7, because there are GFCI requirements back there. And back in the day, before we expanded beyond 15 and 20 amp circuits, everything was fine because everything that they did in chapters, say 6 or 7 or 5 or whatever those other chapters are, or other requirements are back in the back of the book, so to speak, whatever their requirements were, they were still talking about 15 and 20 amp circuits. So there was never a disconnect between 210.8b and what's in the back of the book. But when 210.8b changed to beyond 15 and 20 amp circuits, then the Marina guys were, wait a second, we have our own requirements. We have special requirements around GFCI that includes ground fault protection of equipment. We also have RV parks that had 15 and 20 amp, and they said, "Whoa, we don't want to have to protect the RV itself." And the expanded use of the language in 210.8 indicates that type of usage. So we had to do some correlating between, and the correlating committee won't make a public input other than to tell the panel to reconsider something or to modify things. But the correlating committee can create task groups, which are going on right now. And if you're not engaged with any of those task groups and you want to be engaged, contact the NFPA. Send them an email. Say, hey, I want to be engaged with some of the task group work, or at least dial into some of the audio and listen to some of the task groups. So you have the correlating committee that does that, and then beyond that, you have Standards Council. And Standards Council, the further up in the food chain you get, the less technical and more process oriented the work goes. So the Standards Council is that group that basically says, hey, who is on? How do we want to organize the various code making panels? Do we want to remove a code making panel? Do we want to combine code making panels? Who are the people that are on code making panels? They approve all of those types of changes. So that's sort of what the hierarchy, and what we're talking about right now, which what we are very concerned with, or what is more important and more relevant to our discussion, is the code making panel, how they're comprised, what their makeup is, and how a public input would be reviewed. So on any one of the code making panels, you'll have various organizations and industry groups, and I call categories of individuals who sit on these panels. A lot of people have a misconception. They'll say, all of it's driven by one individual group, whether it be the manufacturer. People who don't like, say, the requirements that a product be required, they'll say, well, that's just the manufacturer pushing that. Somebody who is saying, that additional working spaces, that's just an IBW, that's just an electrical worker thing, and that's them pushing this and driving this and making that happen. None of that's true. If you look at the code making panel, it's a balanced group of individuals from each of these groups. So you have manufacturers, and Eaton is a manufacturer. NEMA, I should have the NEMA logo there. I didn't have NEMA logo there. National Electrical Manufacturers Association. So on code making panel 2, I represent NEMA, and on code making panel 10, I represent Eaton. Users, the Home Builders Association, the NAHB, would be an example of a user. An installer maintainer would be your NECA or your IEC, your Independent Electrical Contractors, or your National Electrical Contractors Association. Those two types of organizations would be your installers and maintainers. That's just an example of two industry representatives. Labor, that's your IBW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and it could be other labor organizations or other individuals as well that represent that category. I could not represent labor. I could not represent an installer maintainer. I couldn't represent an enforcing authority, which is the IEI, although I'm a member of the IEI. I couldn't represent that because I work for a manufacturer. It would be harder, I guess. The NFPA doesn't like if a manufacturer is me as a manufacturer, or a NECA contractor saying, well, I'm going to represent State Farm because I got State Farm insurance and they have a representation, and I'm going to represent them on that because they've asked me and I've got good relationships there. No, you're a contractor, so you have a category you fit in. So in any case, this is what you'll see on a code making panel. So as I sit around code making panel 2, and I sit around code making panel 10, and others sit around their respective code making panels, you can look at all the individual players and pretty much put them into one of these categories. And NFPA processes and the ANSI process make sure that not one is more influential than another. It's balanced. Right now, there are 18 code making panels, and I know that because I go to my code book and I look and I see, actually, yep, 18. In last cycle, there was 19 code making panels, but they made some changes. There are 18 code making panels, 150 articles, 12 tables, 10 informative annex, but all of that can change every cycle. We can add new articles. We can subtract articles. We can combine articles. If you have ideas and you say, look, as a matter of fact, Dean Hunter at the Western section of the IEI meeting, Dean Hunter raised an issue that, there were 2 code making panels, 2 articles in the NEC governed by 2 separate code making panels that were related, and they continuously had conflicting requirements. So he raised the issue that, we ought to really look at these requirements, either get both of those code making panels talking to each other to align these requirements, or possibly combine both of these into one, either one code making panel, or just pull all of those requirements, put them into one article in the NEC. Those are ideas that we can bring to the plate and raise during the 2023 cycle. So I'm just going to give you this is a snapshot for the 2023 code cycle. You'll see the dates are wrong. I have not updated this slide deck. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, I'm going to talk in general terms first, just give you an overview to show where we're at in this process. And then we'll talk about specific dates. So you'll have public inputs. There will be a deadline for public inputs. They are open and active right now on the NFPA website. I'll show you how to do that, and we'll do an example public input together. That is due, and there's a specific date. I'll give you those dates here in a second. After the public inputs and they're publicized and everybody gets to see them, We will have a first draft meeting coming up next year in January, hopefully. Knock on wood. I know this virus issue has really shaken globally our everything that we do, and that's sort of why I'm practicing the social distancing network as part of TD's social distancing network program, which you're enjoying right now. Um, and let's see, let's see how many people are enjoying this right now. We've got 75 people on YouTube enjoying this. I'm not sure how many on Facebook are enjoying this. Um, we got a bunch of people out there joining us. I got 5. I don't know. All I know is I got 5 comments or 12 comments, 12 new comments. But in any case, we are working hard to hopefully meet in January. And then after the code making panel meets, we will, we'll either accept what you guys or what the public has to offer. We will resolve it. We don't like to use the word reject in the first draft meeting. We call it resolved, and which means basically you've been rejected. We could resolve the requirement, and or we could accept the requirement, or we could resolve that requirement, but we could actually make a public input that isn't exactly what you asked for, but your idea and the code making panel debating over it betterized it, if that's a word. Then after that public comment, after the public inputs are done, after our first draft, we will publish the first draft of the NEC. Now it's important that if you have an idea, if you have a concept, to get that concept started in the public input phase, because you can't introduce new material in the public comment phase. So which creates a little bit of a challenge, because if you maybe a public input that someone else made that you saw spurred an idea in your head about something unrelated to anything that's been discussed, it's hard to get that in as a public comment. A lot of times we will hold that over for the next cycle because it's new material. So when you construct your public input and your substantiation, try to put as much in your substantiation as you can, so that when you come to the public comment, even if your idea morphs a little bit, it won't be considered new material if you at least talk about it in your substantiation. It's all public material. If you know somebody on a code panel, or if your organization is on the code panel, like NEMA, and you have a public input and you have an idea for the public comment phase, put it in the your members' statement. Even if you're supporting a code change and say, I'm supporting this, and you would vote for it, you can still put a statement in associated with your yay vote. You definitely have to put a statement in if you have a nay vote, and make sure that you get your idea and concept in, so that in the public comment phase, it is not new material. There will be a public comment deadline. There will be a second draft meeting, which will typically be before the end of next year, November, December timeframe. We'll look at the specific dates here shortly. And then we'll draft the second revision. And then finally, you have the NFPA annual meeting, which is, I would arguably say, it's almost it's your second to last chance. You still have the appeals process, which is the very last chance. But the NFPA annual meeting, what's kind of cool about that is, if you were a part of this process and you did not like what the code making panel did, and you think they were totally wrong, and it has a safety issue associated with it, especially if it has a safety issue with it, and you don't want to see it go into the code, or something that they've been rejecting that you think needs to be in there. Let's take those two separately. If you have a proposal that's in the code that you think should be rejected, and you've made your arguments in the first draft, in the second draft, and they still aren't listening to you, you can make what's called a notice of intent to make a motion. We call it a NITMAM. You make a notice of intent to make a motion at the annual meeting. You submit that. There will be a deadline associated with it. You submit that. It's reviewed. If you qualify, then NFPA will make that, Standards Council will make that a certified amending motion, and that will be heard from the floor at the annual meeting. Anybody who is a member 6 months or more, they have a little clicker. I'm going to use my wallet, but they have a little clicker in their hand, and it'll have buttons for support or for or against or yes or no or whatever that is. And at the annual meeting, they will put that certified amending motion on the screen. You will stand and argue either for or against it. Anybody who's been a member 6 months or more has the opportunity to vote. They can voice their opinion. Sometimes the debates get heated and argue and all that jazz. It's all recorded and available for public consumption on the, and I'll show you those links to find those records. It's all public record. And then everybody who's been a member 6 months or more can vote for it. And if it was in the code and you think it should come out, and everybody at the floor votes that they agree with you, then that's where the buck stops. That will come out at that point. Now, if your argument was to add something and it was rejected at the public input, it was rejected at the public comment, it's not new material, and you want to add it and you're successful at the NFPA annual meeting, then it goes back to the code making panel and they have to vote it, and they may still say they think you're nuts and not accept that as a final part of the National Electrical Code. They still have, the code making panel still has the chance to not accept that. And then if you did not get what you liked at the NFPA annual meeting, then you can make an appeal and file an appeal. And in the appeal, it's almost, I would say the appeal is more of a legal process than anything else. It is, did you follow did you follow the rules? You may have a complaint that it's a restraint of trade or other types of things. Legalese, this is when you're getting lawyers involved, because either it has it's probably a process oriented type of issue. So that's sort of the process in general. I'll call up the website to show you where you can find the dates associated with any NFPA document, not just the National Electrical Code. But before I do that, I'm going to take a look at some comments. WebEx, Don Ganir. So people other than code making panel members can be on task groups. Yes, a task group is not just code making panel members. You can have, you can appeal to the chair of that task group, the coordinating committee chair, the code making panel chair, and say you feel that you should be a part of that process. They can put you on there. They can also not put you on there, but they can tell you that, you know, I'm not going to put you on there, but you can attend. These are public meetings. All of these are public meetings, and you can attend them and listen to the dialogue and participate if the chair allows you. It's just like a code making panel meeting. Anybody can add their 2 cents either as a public input, or you can say, you know what, I want to talk to the code making panel. You can come to the code making panel meetings, first draft or second draft, and you can request of the chair time to speak. The chair will give you your time. You can request time. You can say, you know what, I want a full hour to educate these idiots. And the chair may say, you know what, I like the fact that you want to come and talk to us, and we'd love to hear what you have to say, but you got 5 minutes, okay? Or you have 10 minutes. You can request time, but the chair is going to be looking at the workload of the code making panel, and they will only give you so much time. The same goes for task group chair. So I chair a couple task groups for this 2023 cycle. And if somebody would ask me that they wanted to present something, I would, as chair of this task group, I would say, send me your material. What is it that you want to discuss? How much time are you looking for? And then I know the workload of our task group. And if I think it's important enough, I could I could elect to say, you know what, we're going to bring the task group together and we're going to talk about your item and your issue. Depends on what your issue is. So you could always request to the meeting information to partake in that. Ron Humphrey, you should be, this was at 2:59, so that's a little bit older. Good afternoon, Don Gannier, Mr. Ryan Jackson. Okay, so that is everything on there. So I'm going to look at my live stream on, there we go. So, okay, so here we go. On YouTube land, we need to replace, okay. Here's what I'm going to do. Ryan, I'm just going to copy all of this. Control C. I'm going to put these ideas in a Word document. Control V. And then I'll bring this Word document up. Delete. Bill Neitzel, get an idea. Alfio, redacted, retracted. And that's a good thing to know that, you know, hey, remember, there's no idea is a bad idea. I'm not going to be as focused on who is putting it in. Awesome. Here, and Felix is ready to expand his knowledge. Excellent. All right, so David Englehart, I can delete. Bob McCabe is in the house, y'all. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to delete some pictures out of this Word document. Let's take a look at, I'm just looking to see, I got some ideas in here. ROP and ROC. It was, okay, that was ROP, Report on Proposals and Report on Comments. Thank you, Don. Man, it's funny how many years I've been involved with and so familiar with ROP and ROC, I couldn't remember it. And it was the TCR, Technical Committee Report, and which was the proposals, and then the TCD, Technical Committee Documentation, which was the comments. Good point. Thank you, Mr. Gannier. See, that's why it's cool to have guys like Dawn on the phone. Special expert. Ryan Jackson made a comment that special expert is drastically underrepresented. Yeah, you could be right there. Yeah, you could be very well. You'd have to look and see on each, if there's a code making panel that you're interested in or anybody's interested in, you have to look at that category and then say, hey, if you want to be on that, I'll show you how to submit your resume. Bill Neitzel, there it is. ROP and ROC. Thank you, Bill. See that? I got all of our. All right. Okay, so ROP, I got to take that out. I'm just looking for code change ideas. You need to be present at the meeting for the NITMAM. Do you need to be present at the meeting for the NITMAM? Elfio says. Al says. So Al, I would say no. I don't think there's a requirement that you have to be present if it's a certified amended motion. But here's the thing: if you're not there to speak on behalf of your own NITMAM and your certified amending motion, if you're not there and you haven't at least designated someone else to speak on your behalf, I'm not sure of the rules on the handing of the baton. But even in any case, even if you're not there and it goes to the floor, if someone's not there to argue your point, your chances are very slim. Remember, as you go through, if you failed the public inputs, you failed the public comments, when you get to the NITMAMs, your chances of success are lower and lower and lower. Because the arguments, I mean, even if you're trying to get something in, it's going to go back to the code panel anyway. But if you're trying to get something stopped, you can do that from the floor, and you can say, look, this is just not right. They haven't heard my arguments. They're misunderstanding this. Now you have a wider body of individuals, a wider body of knowledge and experience, and you'll hear those arguments and debates, and everybody can hear those arguments and debates, and everybody will have the chance to vote. It could be that your point is heard to stop the process. But remember, if you want to continue the process and say, I want this to be accepted, it's got to go back to the code making panel. But you really, it benefits you and your goals and objectives for you to be there. That's an important part of that pie. So let's take a look at the National Electrical Code. All right, so I'm going to looking at here's what I was in. All right, I was looking at technical committee because one of my slides I had people's names and whatnot, and I was trying to figure out if the purview of a code making panel. If you want to really know the purview of a code making panel on National Electrical Code, remember there's 18 of them. And what Code Making Panel 1 has responsibility for is not what Code Making Panel 2 has responsibility for. Then if you go to Technical Committee for any of the NFPA documents, you'll see Code Making Panel 1, Code Making Panel 2. This is where you can see who is on those code making panels. And committee scope and responsibility will tell you, and this is the best, this is better than the book, because here's my thought. I've been in this book and I know there was an article and I was filtering through the book and trying to figure out which code making panel had that article. And it was not in any of these lists. But it was on this list. So here is Code Making Panel 1 and what they have responsibility for. Here is Code Making Panel 2 and what we have responsibility for. Panel 2 is 210, 220, Annex D, examples, D1 through D6. Panel 3 has responsibility for 300, 590, 720, 725. So you get the feeling for what articles, and this is, I think, the most accurate representation of what code-making panels have purview over which articles and which sections. Our staff liaison is Mr. Sargent. Great guy, great individual. Now, you'll see here as well as the committee overview, you'll have the guidelines and classifications. Take a look at that. I'm going to get to the public inputs here, but I just want to at least set the stage. So here's what, remember I was showing you the classifications. You have manufacturer, you have user, you have installer, maintainer, labor, applied research testing laboratories. Here are all of those classifications, and they are in accordance with 3.2.5 of the regulations governing the development of NFPA standards. So that's another important document that you can download to understand how code making panels are laid out. What is the job of the coordinating committee? What is the job of standards council? And all of those different parts of the organization. You have the enforcing authority, and then what that means. So these are the categories. If you wanted to get on a code making panel, you'd have to see what category you fit in, and then make your arguments to make your your submission to be on the committee. We call that a submittee. And then here's a link that says committees seeking reorganization of code making panels. Not sure what that is. This is the first time I've seen this. Reorganization of code making panels for NFPA 70, National Electrical Code. Standards Council, upon request of the Coordinating Committee, is December 2016, has decided to combine code making panels 6 and 7. So this is what happened in the last cycle. So this gives you some of the reasons why you see changes with some of the code making, like panel 2 used to handle feeders. They moved that over to code making panel 10, which I think is in here. Code making panel 4 is now just your alternative energy. It's your PV, your wind, all of those types of applications. That's just under code making panel 4. And then so this gives you some guidance as to what happened in the reorganization of those. So these tabs are very important to help give you the perspective of the National Electrical Code and some of the rules governing its development. And it's important to know if you're thinking about trying to improve the usability of the of the code. So NFPA does not allow downloading a PDF of the code anymore due to copyright issues. This is Merdad. I'm going to butcher your last name. I probably butchered your first name. Sorry. This limits the access to the code as there is not always online access and it's hard to carry the book. They made a decision to not publish the PDF version of the book, and that is That's their call, and they can do that. Their concern was, to your point, there's too much copying, copyright issues, violations going on. So yes, you cannot get the PDF version. You can view the code for free. So you can view the current version or older versions. So you can select the edition. I'm going to select the 2020 edition, and this will give me the ability. I'm sorry, here it is up here, free access. Now I have, since I'm a committee member, and you can also subscribe to a service where you can access this information through a different method. Remember, you sign in with your member ID, and if you purchase the ability to view online the code, etc., you can do that in another way. So yes, NFPA does not allow downloading the PDF. Would a PE be an example of a special expert? Joseph, you would have to show. I wouldn't say just having your PE doesn't give you that special expert. It doesn't have to be a PE, but if you have your PE license and you are, say, for example, you install something, you are the hazardous location guru. That's what you do for a living. You contract with BP, ExxonMobil, all these other big boys in that industry, and that's what you do, and you're recognized as an industry expert in that area. You could make that argument that as long as you're not a manufacturer, as long as you're not an electrical contractor, as long as you don't fit in some of those other categories, you could qualify as a special expert. The only special expert that I can think of off the top of my head is Fred Hartwell in CMP 9. And he doesn't have a PE, just a very sharp code guy. That's true. Another special expert, we have one on Code Making Panel 2. Let's go to 70 next. And you can see who the special experts are by going to the NFPA website. And you know what? I should not be in that. Well, I am. So if I go to technical committee, I'll give you an example. I go to technical committee, and let's go to Code Making Panel 2, because Mr. Hartman, just go to Code Making Panel 2, view committee members. So E is enforcement, E is enforcement, M is manufacturer, user. So Charlie Boynton, he's DuPont, DuPont, Dow Chemical. Donnie Cook is your installer maintainer, he's IAI. There's me as a manufacturer. Tom Hartman is special expert. He is University of Houston. So your university people could be classified as a special expert. So that's one example. I'm not sure. Let's say Code Making Panel 4. I'm not sure if there's any special experts on Panel 4. Installer, there's a utility, there's a user, manufacturer, labor, user, manufacturer, installer, maintainer. There's no special experts on Panel 4. Now, if you looked at what Panel 4 covered and you wanted to qualify as a special expert, then you could make your argument. No, there is non-voting member Steve Douglas, special expert. QPS, Evaluation Services, and he's non-voting. So out of Toronto, Ontario. Canadian Electrical Code Committee. So he's representative from Canada. So that is probably, there are Canadian representatives on various code making panels that sit on the Canadian Electrical Code and try to keep alignment. And they're non-voting members. They're there to bring information to the code making panel. They can argue, they can debate, things like that, but they can't vote. So there are special expert categories. So I'm going to close that. I was over here on my committees. So these are my subscriptions. And you can purchase access, online access, which gives you some additional features of copy paste, printing, other things, so that you can have access. And as a code making panel, I have access to NFPA was very nice of them to say, look, we're going to give you access to this because we know that you're working hard on this stuff. So I could go to any one of these sections, and you'll see I can right mouse click, I can save page as. So I have abilities that I don't have when I'm in read only mode. So you can access this, and we'll be using this, and we also are going to be using 70 next for public inputs. I'll show you where the public inputs go. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the public inputs that we had. That gives you a little of an overview, talks a little bit about that. I think the lack of an official PDF is actually increased copyright issues. Don Ganere, people scan copies. Oh, you don't want to do that. That would be illegal. Yes, Code Making Panel 2, Tom Harmon. Yes, Harmon. Yep, absolutely. All right, so you'll see as you go to the next edition, you'll see where it says the next edition is now open for input. And you'll notice where it says revision cycle, annual 2022 NEC. This is where we're going to get our dates from that we didn't get to earlier. So our public input closing date is September 10th, 9/10/2020. So it's May. It's May 11th right now. So we're less than 4 months away. For about 1 day less probably than for about 4 months away. And then the final date for the first draft meeting is January 23rd, 2021. So we will meet somewhere before that. That's the final date. They will put the notice out to say this. First draft meeting hasn't moved in a while. It's going to be down at Hilton Head. The hotel has changed, but the location hasn't. It was a Crown Royal, not Crown Royal. It was a Crown Plaza, I think. They called it Crown Royal there for a while, but it's Crown Plaza. I think it was Crown Plaza. It may have changed again. I don't know. I can't think of the name of the hotel, but they'll post all of that information for the agendas. And if you want to go, you can. If you wanted to speak, you can speak. The posting of the first draft is going to be March 12th. So we meet in January, and the first draft for public consumption and comments will be by March 12th. Final date for the first draft ballot is March 26th. Oh, that's the technical committee ballot. So they'll send out to us a ballot that we get to see what we did at the first draft meeting, and we'll know whether or not, like if the hand vote was successful, then, and that only requires a simple majority, if I'm not mistaken, to pass the committee, and then you need 2/3 to pass the actual ballot. Then the final date to receive that is April 2nd, and then the posting of the first draft for the Core Lane Committee meeting is April 9th. And the final date for the Core Lane Committee first draft meeting is May 8th. And then the posting of the first draft. So we meet in January, and you won't see it for public comment until June 11th. And you have about 7 days. No, September. What am I talking about? That's the posting of the first draft and the Core Lane Committee ballot. Then the final date for the receipt of the first draft ballot. So remember, the technical committee has to vote, and then the Core Lane Committee has to vote on it, and then it goes out for public, and that won't be till July 2nd. So you're not going to see this until July, and then the public comments are due in August. So, but all of the different, so the way this lays out, the first, you have the public, you have the technical committee meets, we hand vote. They send a ballot out to all the technical committee based upon the hand votes, and it has to maintain a 2/3 vote at that to stay concurrent. They'll take that first technical committee ballot and then recirculate it after we vote the first time. Then that way you can see, I could see how Tom Harmon or others voted on things, and I may have voted for something. They voted against something. And when you vote against, you have to put a note on why you don't agree with it. And that may be, hey, you know what? He's right. I'm going to change my ballot. So that gives me a chance to possibly change my ballot. Then it goes to the correlating committee. They look at it. They go through the same process. They go through a vote, a ballot. They got a hand vote at the correlating committee. They have a ballot. They have a recirculation of that ballot. And then finally it gets out to the public for consumption. And that's a process that begins in January and ends in July. And then we do the whole thing over again. The public comment will be, closing date will be on 8/19/2021. Then you have the appeals. Then you have the second draft meeting. You have the posting of that, the date for the second draft, the ballot, the recirculation of the ballot. Then it goes to the correlating committee, the final date for the second draft correlating committee. They ballot, and then they recirculate that ballot. And then finally it goes out for the final portion of the process, which is the NITMAM. And we'll see that March. The annual meeting is in June of 2022. If it's ratified there, if it's accepted there, it'll be published later that year. So that's sort of, and then there's the dates for the NITMAM and the certified amending motions, and you can see all of that is right there, and the appeals. And then usually the code is available somewhere in October, November timeframe, depends. And that's sort of the process. Now, it says that it's open for public input. You can click there to submit a public input, and it'll bring up the code, right? You have all of your articles over here, and you can make all of your public inputs. You can basically highlight an article. You can make a global public input that'll affect everybody. And there was an idea that came in, which I'll just bring up right now. A gentleman said, if the NEC is only recognized in the United States, then can we please state all measurements in English and put the metric in parentheses? So what he's getting to is that he's sitting there saying, I'm going to look at maybe chapter 2. Actually, chapter 1, well, let's get to working space, where we might have measurements. Oop. Markings, 110.16, mechanical, interrupting wiring methods, 110.6 voltages, mechanical execution of work, mounting of cooling, 10.26, there it is, 10.26. All right, so here's an example. We have millimeters first, and then we have feet second. So what this person is saying is that they should, we should put that feet first and millimeters second. Now, the first part of his comment said, this is only recognized in the United States. It might only be recognized. I mean, there are other countries that use the National Electrical Code. There are other countries that use the content of this document and they develop their own. Canadian Electrical Code uses a lot of what we have. We use some of what they have. So there's a lot of sharing of information. The fact that millimeters comes first and feet is second is more than likely driven by the NFPA and the rules and regulations, and the style manuals and things like that. That is probably something that you could make a public input. You would make a global public input around that and make a generic statement that says reorganize all dimensions to be U.S. first and metric second, and give an example. Say 900 millimeters per n, 3 foot, close per n. Replace that with 3 foot, open per n, 900 millimeters, close per n. You can do that, and you can make that as a global so that it goes everywhere. And it will probably fail. But it would get that on the table for discussion. And if you get enough of those types of comments, it makes it to the correlating committee, and you may be able to move the needle in that regard. But that would be kind of tough. And the reason would be, you have to come up with a technical substantiation. You got to say, here's why this is a safety issue or a usability issue. You have to show that this is causing confusion, that people don't understand, that people are using millimeters instead of feet. I don't know what your argument would be outside of you just like to see feet. All of the information is there. So you would have to substantiate it, which is a portion, which is I think something very important that a part of your success in a public input. So that was that one. In fact, let's take a look. Zach, 517.26. Change phrasing of code to something along the lines. Okay, let me do this. I'm going to. He's in 517, so we're going to go up to 517. So these are comments that came in over my NEC 2020 PI. He's in healthcare. He's in 517.26, application of other articles. All right. All right, I'm just going to open up my Gmail account so I can copy this and put it into the Word because it's a little large. And then I'll put it on the screen so everybody can see that. 517. 517.26. Nope. So Zach is a healthcare guru. All right, suggested change. So I'm going to copy this. I'll put this in my Word file. Control C. Microsoft Word. Control V. So here's what he's asking. Change phrasing of code to something along the lines of Article 700 shall be applied to the life safety branch except as amended by Article 517. This better matches 99, 2018 and makes it clear for inspectors that just took a class about Article 700 or add to handbook commentary. Well, now the handbook, remember the handbook is not something that we would make a public input on, but you could make a public input, and in your panel statement, you could make that to say, hey, look, let's make this align with Article 700. And let's take a look real quick at Article 700. Let's go over here. Nope. Go over here. So I'm going to have the code changes in one, and I'll put the actual code in another tab. So we can go through both of these. 700 emergency systems, tests and maintenance. Can't see. Okay. Test and maintenance. We're looking for other articles. Transfer equipment, documentation, malfunction, ground fault, emergency surge, R2 wiring. I don't see where it says other articles. Maintenance. Test and maintenance. All right. Well, Mr. shall be applied to the life safety branch. Maybe you're looking at the scope. Circuits intended to supply, distribute, or normal. So what you would need to do, so this is just a good example, in this discussion of 517.26, saying phrasing to it says along the lines of Article 700 shall apply or be applied to the life safety branch except as amended by 517. What you would have to do is, I would say, if you wanted to read like 700, to make it clear, you got to show language in Article 700 to say this is what I want it to be like. So I'm not sure where you're going with this on Zachary, but if you want to make it clear, and if you want to use in your substantiation that people who read 99 and read Article 700 may not understand this, then you're going to want to figure out the language and substantiate it with some examples. Clarify whether, so the other one is 700.17. Clarify whether emergency lighting supply, normal lighting supply, refers to the light fixture or the supply of power to the light. Unless both systems are used for regular lighting purposes. Clarify both kept lighting. Clarify whether emergency lighting supply refers to the light fixture or the supply of power to the light. 700.17. Let's take a look at 700.17. 700.17. All right, 700.17. An emergency lighting supply, independent of normal lighting supply, with provisions for automatically transferring the emergency lights upon the event of failure of the normal lighting branch circuit. So you are saying in 700.17.1 to clarify whether emergency lighting supply / normal lighting supply refers to the light fixture or the supply of power to the light. An emergency lighting supply, independent of normal lighting supply, with provisions for automatically transferring the emergency. When I think of supply, so you're looking for some clarity that it does not or doesn't include the fixture. And a diagram could help with that. A diagram could help with that. And in 2, you're saying unless both systems are used for regular lighting purposes and are both kept lighted. Let's bring up your 2. So this is the second one. Unless both systems are used for regular lighting purposes and are both kept lighted, means shall be provided. Clarify both kept lighted. This seems to indicate all areas with emergency lights need to be always on. However, this has been interpreted as both systems being powered based on previous versions of the code. Interesting. Unless both systems are used for regular lighting purposes and are both kept lighted, means shall be provided for automatically energizing either system upon failure of the other. I'm not sure how I would improve that language, but you're looking for clarity. Emergency lights need to always be on. However, this has been interpreted as both systems being powered based on previous versions of the code. Be interesting. I'm not sure how to fix that language. I think I know what you're talking about. Once these 2 are all set, please confirm 517 is worded properly. 517.26. All right, so then we have to look at 517.26.3. I'm not sure about how I would fix that, Zach. Look for your. I could definitely float this by some Panel 13 guys. I don't know if we have any Panel 13 people online. If anybody has any input on this one, I'm going to look at see if anybody does have any input with regard to that. I'm going to close this because we're going to just talk public inputs at this point. I'm closing my Excel or my PowerPoint. Save space on my computer. All right. Does anybody have any feedback on that one? Look at my stream. Do you need to be present at the meeting for NIPMAM? No way, Tom. C 90.9b. 90.9b. All right, Joe Sargent, 90.9b. I'm going to look at my book. I'm not sure what that's in reference to, but let's take a look at 90.9b. 90.9 is, units of measure. So this goes back to the units of measure. Dual system of units. SI units shall appear first, and the inch-pound units shall immediately follow in parentheses. Conversion from inch-pounds to SI units shall be based on hard conversion. So the public input, if for this gentleman who was looking for this one here, so for this gentleman who wants that change, if you wanted to change this, you would have to change 90.9b. to support this position. So 90.9b, and it specifically says, take a look at 90.9b. We're on the SI unit. Sorry for bouncing around a little bit. So 90.9b, 90.9b, dual system of units. SI units shall appear first, and inch-pound units shall immediately follow in parentheses. Conversion from, so if you wanted to change that, what you would do, you would go to Tera, you would go to 90.9, units of measure, B, and you don't have to do a global. You would click this and you would say, revise existing sections. Now, I'm not going to submit this because I don't know a good substantiation, but I'm going to show you how it's done. So it'll bring up the language, dual system of units, and you will say inch pound units shall appear first, and SI units shall immediately follow in parentheses. Conversion from inch pound to units to SI units shall be based on hard conversion. So that would be your suggested change. That'll change it everywhere in the code. That would make everybody do a lot of changes. And that's what the change would look like. And you would say next. You would say next. You would have to state the problem. And you would have to say something like, this increases usability for the NEC. And I can't really think of any other, I can't think of a good substantiation. I don't know if anybody else has a good substantiation. The proposed revision is intended to comply with NFPA 1 of the style manual with respect to the placement of the units. Right. So it does violate this would violate the NE style manual. So you would want to say in here, the submitter understands this is not in conformance with the NFPA manual of style, section 4, and hopefully would drive change of this document as well, blah, 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 blah. So you could do that, and then you would say next. Any related PIs that you may have, you would say next. You have your information, you would say next. You would have to check the box that it's you that's making this submission, and you would hit submit. And this is how your public input would look like. You will show up here. You can view it. You can modify this at any point. So if later on you float this by some people and you say, I want to save this off as a Word and email this to somebody to get their opinion. Maybe some code making panel members who would be governing this. You could send that to them and see what they think. They may tell you, you know what, don't waste your time. They may give you other reasons why what you're saying is not going to be valid, and you may elect to change it to address their concerns. Or you may just come back in and say, you know what, I'm going to delete it, and I'm not going to make that public input because you don't want to waste everybody's time, or you don't want to waste your time, and you don't think it's going to succeed, and you understand now why it's millimeters first or SI first and others second. So now Dave Mercier, the emergency supply. Okay. Thanks, Jeff, for 90.9b. So Dawn said, not Dawn, somebody, I just saw another comment somewhere. Maybe it was on Facebook. I don't know. Oh, Adam, Lorenzo, my issue with the metric is using millimeters instead of centimeters. Okay, well, that's more math, that's for sure. But that's how you would make your public inputs. You would have to make a global. You would have to say that somewhere that your SI units shall be in centimeters, not millimeters. And again, you'd have to substantiate it. And I don't know how you would substantiate that. Let's take a look at another public input. It makes too much sense to GFCI outlets for waste disposals that are attached to sink. It seems no different than a dishwasher. I would say that that's already covered because in the 2020 cycle we removed that door issue. So and it's attached to a sink. So that power supply, that receptacle, well, yeah, the receptacle probably is within 6 foot unless you've got a pretty big base there and you're going to move that receptacle pretty far. So that's going to be within six foot of that sink. So we covered this one. So that's already covered, right? And we understand that this would have to be a 90.9 90.9b, not 909. We didn't create a whole new article. 909. We need to replace all occurrences of receptacle outlet to just receptacle in 2023. How many receptacle outlets is a 2-gang box? I'm not sure if I agree with that one, Ryan. But that would be a global, and you could do that. You'd have to, you would have to,
Tom, do you mind if I jump in for a second?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. So I meant to have that only apply to 210.52, but you've got a large kitchen island that requires 6 receptacle outlets. I could have 6 single gang boxes, each with a single receptacle, and that complies. I could have 5 single gang boxes, each with a duplex, giving me 10 places to plug things in, but that doesn't comply, even though I have 4 more receptacles than would be the minimum. So that's the issue that I have is, what's a receptacle outlet, and why do I care how many receptacle outlets I have if the concern is just having a place to plug something in?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, and you know what? We screwed up, not we, somebody screwed up on, I was just looking at this, and this came up during one of my discussions in 406, where we have replacements. They used receptacle outlet replacements and not receptacle replacements in 406.4D. 4, right? To your point, 406.4D4 says if a receptacle outlet located in any areas is replaced. So I'm making a public input on this one to say if a receptacle located in any in the specified areas is replaced, the replacement receptacle rather than the outlet, because you have to replace the outlet. And if you look at the ground fault circuit interrupter, we say a ground fault circuit interrupter protected receptacles shall be provided. So, you know, in some locations, I would agree with you. And you were saying, what section were you going back to chapter 2? What?
210.52.
210.52.
Especially subsection C for kitchens. That this has always been a thing, but it was never a problem until we added the square footage calculation for large islands and peninsulas. Now how many receptacle outlets I need is a real problem. You guys kind of addressed it when you talked about multi-outlet assembly for the exact same reason, but you could remove that too. And we also need to address big cooktops in countertops too. That's vanished in the 2020.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, so you got a point there. And now the concern, the other question would be, do you mean, remember, like a duplex is 2 receptacles, right? And then because when you start, which I agree with what you're saying, somebody has to make the decision. Do you mean a receptacle? Do you mean 2 receptacles? Do you mean a duplex, or do you want a single receptacle? Now, granted, we always put duplexes in. That would count as 2 receptacles instead of 1, right? I think that was part of that may have been part of that discussion, but that's a good, that's a good one. I'd have to think about that one and how you would write that language, though. I missed this point it makes too much sense to GFCI outlets, which is important in this discussion that we just had about receptacles versus receptacle outlets. Right now, we cover a waste disposal receptacle outlet in 210.8, right? So if I go to 210.8, which we did, we talked a little bit about this. We had some people at the code panel thinking about this, and I'm not sure if we had a public input or not, but the comment came in about, oh yeah, we did. So remember we did 210.8, we did 210.8 F, outdoor outlets. And we did that because we wanted to pick up things like that air conditioning unit, air handling, or air conditioning condensing unit, because that was where we had a death. And then when we were in that debate and discussion, I can remember, I don't know if it was someone, I don't know if it was John McCamish or somebody sitting on the panel said, you know what's going to happen? Someone is going to say, we up here say a single phase rated, and all receptacles supplied by three-phase branch circuits with that specific rating. So we are in 210.8 A and B talking about receptacles being protected. In 210.8 F, we went to outlets. And I've heard this same one that was raised, same question raised about the disposal, that and I get this disposal, and we fixed the dishwasher, right? But to get around GFCI requirements, what do? We say, well, hardwire it so you don't have a receptacle anymore, and now you don't have to GFCI protect it. But that doesn't mean the hazard went away, because the hazard is not the receptacle. The hazard is what's being plugged into that receptacle. And then the other question we had was, is the hazard the receptacle, or is the hazard the appliance? So is it that I should be within 6, is it a GFCI, is it a receptacle that is within 6 foot, or is it that the appliance is within 6 foot? So you have a requirement where you would have, say, I don't know, say it's a portable dishwasher, or say it's, I don't know, some sort of appliance where, appliances, I mean, you think about it, we're pretty much covering these things, but we've had deaths associated with the end of life of certain appliances. Refrigerators, we have examples of people who are electrocuted on their refrigerator becoming energized, and we're doing a lot more with refrigerators. So the thought process was, well, if I have a refrigerator, and if that's part of my substantiation is the appliance, the fact that my appliance is within 6 foot of my sink, the receptacle is outside of 6 foot from the sink. Is it the appliance or is it the receptacle? Now, the reason we moved that receptacle out that far is because it's hard to find an extension cord. It's hard to find an appliance with a connected cord that is longer than 6 foot. So your chances of you putting that in the water and the sink, etc., is reduced. But if we saw expansion around some appliances because of the appliance, we had an appliance manufacturer who basically opened the kimono a little bit and said, look, we have an end-of-life condition that will cause a shock hazard or a fire hazard. So we expanded the protection in laundry rooms, and you're seeing Article 422 expand to cover more of the appliance. And what 422 did is they said they're focusing on the appliance, saying that appliances identified in 1 through 7, 60 amps or less, single phase or 3-phase, shall provide with a Class A GFCI. Multiple Class A GFCI protection devices shall be permitted but not required. And they're saying that, the automotive vacuum, the drinking water coolers, the tire inflation machines, the vending machines, the sump pumps, and dishwashers. So what that would do is removes the whole discussion of whether it's an outlet, it's a receptacle. If they're telling you the appliance needs GFCI protection, which makes sense. So in any case, I know that came up, but that's a good discussion point around outlet versus receptacle. And you would have to specifically call out the waste disposal, and that would be a line item, probably. Either that, or I would go back to 422. That probably would be the right location to put it. In 422, I would go down here to 422 appliances, and you could make a change to A and add you could add waste disposals attached to sinks and put that in here. And your substantiation would be that that's a 422.5A. That's a very good 422.5A. Add list item to cover disposals, hardwired outlets. And here's what I'm going to do too. I am so that's a good example, and I think that has merit. Actually, that has a lot of merit. NEC 2023 vote. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to create a poll on Mentimeter, and vote on PI idea. Agree. Make it a PI. Disagree. Don't make it a PI. Needs work. You are smoking something. All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a code. And as we come up on these things, we're going to vote on them. We are going to vote, and I'm going to show the vote. Let me do present, because I can add these at will. You're going to go to menti.com. Okay, I'm not going to do that. You're going to go to menti.com. So go to menti.com, and we're going to enter code 95 42 and 88. All right, and I want you guys and gals to vote on do you answer the questions that you see on the poll. Don Guinier says, I think it's a mistake to put the appliance GFCI rules in 422. Everyone knows to look in 210.8 for GFCIs, but they don't know to look to 422.5. I don't disagree with you, Dawn. All right, so go to menti.com and enter that code and vote. And when we get enough people here, I've got 2 people. I got 2 people so far, and look, it's 50-50. Only 2 people voted so far. I got 3 agree. So I'm not going to show that. Yeah, let's watch the. Here's what I'll do is I'll minimize this a little bit. Whoops. I'm going to minimize that a little bit. Put that over here, and we're going to put this over here. And what we're voting on is this 422, adding it to the appliances. Now, outside of Dawn's, I agree with you, Dawn. I tend to agree with you. We need some relationship between 210.8 and 422. In fact, I've had somebody say we should create our own article just on ground fault circuit interrupters, and put all of the GFCI requirements in one location. One person thinks we're smoking something. 1 says we need a little bit more work. 3 disagrees. 11 we agree on public inputs. So this one has merit. Voting. So I'm going to leave that up on the screen. And I'm going to highlight this in yellow as something that we thought was, you know, it was something that was worth, what do I highlight? There we go. All right. So I'll let you guys vote on that one while we take a look at some other ideas. I'm not sure about this one, Ryan. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to view. I'm going to split. How do I split? Show. Grid lines. Zoom. Multiple pages. Window. Split. All right. So that's the question that we're voting on right now. We got 15 agrees, 5 disagrees, 4 needs work. Keep those votes coming in. I'm going to see how many people. Now we've got 27 people who voted so far. Whoop. And I've got, I'm not sure how many people. It makes too much sense. Not sure it complies with the regs. Oh, Ryan Jackson. I would say, no, Ryan, the issue is right now, the substantiation, in my opinion, right now you're covered. Your pluggable disposals are covered. Your hardwire disposals are not. Just removing the plug and hardwiring it does not remove the hazard. You have a motorized thing that shakes and bakes. It's connected to your sink. It's got water flowing through it. You have a receptacle down below, or you may or may not have a receptacle where it's plugged in. If you don't have a receptacle, then it's not protected. If it does have a receptacle, it's protected. It seems like a double standard. Either remove it completely and say no, these things shouldn't have GFCI protection, and there's no hazard there whatsoever. Or yes, we think that they all should have it, whether it's plugged or not plugged. And we got 18 people right now that are buying that rule. Some of the 422 rules are even outside the scope of the NEC as they apply to appliances that are not installed. Good point, Mr. Ganir. Good point. How many is a 2 gang box for a 2? Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's this again, 210.52c. I'm not sure how I would change that language, Ryan, but I see your point. In fact, I had a picture, and I wish I could. I'd have to go back to my emails and find it, which would really wrap my the speed of my computer around the axle. But somebody showed me 4 duplex receptacles at the end of an island, right side by side. That's what they did. Instead of placing them around the island, maybe 2 at one end, 2 at the other, they put 4 all on one side. Why do I care how many outlets there are when the concern is the number of receptacles? I would not disagree with you, Ryan, and I would look. That would be a half decent public input. So that's what we'll do is people are voting on that one. We've got only 31 people wanted to go out on that limb. That's okay. I haven't been checking Facebook. Here's what we're gonna do. Where's there it is. How do I create a new? All right, so this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pull this one back, and we're gonna think about Ryan's idea a little bit. I'm going to edit this Mentimeter so it's the same code. We're going to use the same code. And exit that. And I'm going to add a slide. And we're going to say vote on PI for 210. What is this? 210.52. 210.52 Charlie. 210.52 Charlie. All right. Present. All right, so if you should be able to go to your Mentimeter and use the same code 954288 and vote for this second one right there. Nobody's voted yet, but this will be on Ryan's. If the NEC is only recognized, nope, Ryan Jackson. So how many of the two games? So we're talking about changing, moving the word receptacle outlet and putting in just receptacles. Will the dogs be available for the questions? No, Mr. Mercier, the dog, the puppies are upstairs. They did go to the groomer today. They got a bath, they got their nails clipped, and they were probably out like a light on the couch or in the living room upstairs. All right. I'm looking through some of the comments. Nobody's voting. Give me some votes. Ryan, you're not even voting for your own item. I'm going to leave that up while we review some more. Okay, thank you, Zach. Thank you, Ryan. I'm going to go to Daryl. All right, Daryl, that was not a, that was just a question to me. NEC process question. What has been the normal percentage of digital communication versus in-person meetings in the past with today's current situation? How do you see that percentage changing, if any, going forward? So Tracy, I can tell you, so here's the thing. What I am seeing from a digital communications impact, more so than the NFPA process, are things like IAI presentations and things like, oh, I got option 1, option 2. Shoot, hold on. I see why nobody voted. Hold on. Let me, they're probably like, what's he doing? I didn't put the voting in. So I'm going to reset the results for just that slide. And I'm going to say, agree, disagree, needs work. You smoking something. Agree. Make it a PI. Disagree. Don't make it a PI. Please go smoke something. All right. So I'm not going to put the needs work, because even though it needs a PI, but it obviously needs work because we don't have PI language. So that's what we're going to do. And everybody's voting already. So we got 8. We got 1 that disagrees. All right. So I'm going to put that present mode. And I am going to escape. And I'm going to smallize that. All right. So very good. Now let's look. I'm going to go back to 517. I don't know if somebody had some comments on the live stream. I'm just checking some of the notes here. Ryan Jackson joined. Thomas, I just sent you an important email. Tommy Davis. I'm going to check. So Zach Berry had some good items. I don't know if I logged in here somewhere. I'll move this over here. All right. NEC, how can I improve? There we go. Tracy Dolan. So, Tracy, I was answering your question. I have seen more in-person meetings. I've seen more digital meetings when it comes to like IAI presentations and meetings like for example, the NEC safety conference that was canceled. There were a couple NEMA meetings that I was supposed to be at person, but we did it electronically. From an NFPA process, even the task groups, they've always met digitally, and they will continue to meet digitally, whether we're in a Corona world or not. But the first draft meeting hopefully will be, well, I don't think they would do the Jeff Sargent or whoever, if Jeff's still around out there in YouTube land or in other land, I doubt they would make the public input phase electronic. I'm on NFPA 78. I mean 73. We do most of our meetings electronically just because we don't get a lot of revisions. So that's done electronically. You can do a first draft and a second draft meeting electronically. I don't think they would do that with the National Electrical Code. So in any case, that's all I have to say about that. Let's go back and take a look at Tommy Davis. There we go. All right, Tommy Davis, NEC Article 690-13 and 690.15. Attached is the PI to Panel 4. This PI should also have been included in Article 404 switches. Let's take a look at this. Boy, I'm liking this. So I'm going to download this. He sent me a few documents. I'm going to open up his Word document. We're going to take a look at, all right. This is, zoom out a little bit. Public input 3002. This is for the last cycle, so he's sharing with us the PV system disconnect means shall be installed if the PV system disconnect means exposes any energized terminals or wiring then physically opened, the enclosure shall be required to a tool to open. Interesting. The installation of PV systems has created an opportunity for placement of disconnect switches in locations that are accessible by other than qualified personnel. All right. And this was, okay, so there's another, here's another one, 690.15. Okay, I get it. All right, so you understand his argument here. So let's take a look. And what he's saying is, so this was the public inputs. And if I go to 690.13a, 690.13a, I'm moving some things around here. 690.13a. All right, 690. There's chapter 6. I'm going to go to 690. And I'm going to go to 13. So here is 690.13a. The PV, where disconnecting means systems are readily accessible, any enclosure door fringe shall be locked or require a tool to open. So this was the language they accepted. If the PV, so it's a little different. So you'll see a little difference between what the public input was and then what was actually accepted by the code panel. So the code panel did make a little bit of a change, but they did accept where disconnecting means the system's 30 volts. So they put the 30 volts in, above 30 volts, because that's your shock threshold, are readily accessible to unqualified persons. Any enclosure, door, or hinged cover that exposes live parts when open shall be locked or require a tool to open. So that, I'm going to look in my book, 690.13. And you see his substantiation, 690.13. Okay. 690.13a, and that is shown as, yep, that's all shown as new text. Interesting. All right, so I'm going to look at what other documents he sent me. This is aimed at knife switches and those that are the only type of switch where we can walk up to the cover and open it and reach in and touch live parts. Mr. Davis is correct. It should be a global rule. Don Ganier's agreeing with it. I don't know about you, Don. Who out there? I should do a poll. Who out there? I'm going to do a poll on this one too. Unlocked high voltage boxes, electric boxes, danger in the household home, tens of thousands of boxes. So this was an article that was published. I remember this article. I remember this discussion. Okay, so you know what I'm going to do? Let's go take a look at what our poll looks like on. So 21052C, I got 5 that disagree with Mr. Ryan Jackson, and I have 29 that agree. Only 34 voters out there. So here is what I'm going to do. I am going to edit this. Show hide results. I'm going to exit, and I'm going to create another little poll, and I'm going to just do this. I'm going to copy instead of I think I can do that. If I come over here and I duplicate this, and I say PI for this is PI for lockable. Hold on. I'm gonna say 690.13a globalization. Okay. For Control V, 690.13a globalization. All right, so you should be able to go to that same item and vote for that one to see whether or not you guys and gals like that idea or not. So I am going to put that over here. And you understand the gist is that disconnecting means that exposes any energized terminals or wiring when physically opened shall require a tool to open. Basically, that concept being a global requirement. Awesome. All right. Go ahead.
Hey, Tom, can I comment on that a minute?
Yeah, sure, Don.
If you look at our typical knife-type blade disconnect switches,
Yep.
that's the device we're looking at. You can walk up to that. Some of them don't even have an interlock for you can't open them even when they're energized on some of them. Some you can only open them when you have the switch in the opposition. But even with the opposition, anybody can walk up to that, open that up with no tools and reach in and touch the top parts. That's the only electrical device I can think of that we install that works that way, that we don't need a tool or something.
Yeah, that's true. Like your panel boards, anything else, you would typically have that met. Which, though, I mean, it would be because of that, Dawn. It would not get a lot of people nervous, right? You wouldn't see a lot of people hair go up on the back of their necks thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is going to change the world," because we already meet this. But it would make sure globally and generically that these products and these types of any type of solution would require a tool, and it would be
most of them already have a provision to provide a lock, so you can lock the cover closed. So no redesign is necessary on most of them. It's just simply that the user or the installer needs to provide a lock in the provision that's provided by the manufacturer.
Yeah. Locked or require a tool to open. I can see. Looks like most people are agreeing with this one. So that's a good one. That was pretty good. That was Mr. Tommy Davis. Thank you, Mr. Davis. That we can, and what I'll do is I can try to come up and figure out if I can figure out what language. I'll help you, Mr. Davis. I could now have your email address and whatnot. I can try to help you find out the right place within. If that's something that you want to carry forward, I can help you with the language. I can help you with some of the substantiation, and you can put it into your name. I can help you do that. Sometimes it's bad if it's coming from me because people will say, "Oh, that's what product do they have that they're trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes and it's going to kill people and it's going to stop my business, and it's a competitive advantage for Eaton." So it can sometimes just get people to vote against it just because it's coming from a manufacturer. I'm going to look through Ryan Jackson, 21052. We need to replace all the current. Okay, we already talked about that. And we had overall, we had 2 disagree with this globalization. Perfectly fine. It's good to see. What I like about the voting is it gives you some sort of perspective on other people's, whether they agree with you or not. And it's anonymous, so I can't tell who is voting which way. So don't feel that if you vote here that all of a sudden you're on record as supporting something, because I have no way to know who is supporting and who is not supporting anything. All right, looking notifications, ESW. All right, Zach, we went through Zach, so I don't think I have. I want to call up. Wait, Zach has another one. So Zach seems to be a 517 and a 700 guru. So I want to give him some thought process here. Work is good for me. Good afternoon. All right, so that was for the comments. I'm just looking to make sure. So Zach had this one. I'm capturing the global, so I can tie these two together. So I am going to window, remove split. So here is. Here we go. Control C. This is a 517.31, so I am going to make this a little smaller. It's a 517.26, Control V, 517. I'm going to show you something here. Use home, brush. We're going to make these all the same. All right, so here is this idea. Flexible power cords and appliances or other utilization equipment connected to the emergency system. Change emergency to essential. References to this system as an emergency system in 517 were removed. Ooh, 517.31C34. 517.31C34. So we have to go to, I have to call up TerraView. 517.13. 517.31 Charlie 34. 31 Charlie 3. So 31C is wiring requirements, and 4 says C34 flexible power cords and appliances or other electrical connected to the emergency system. And what he's referring to is they got rid of that emergency system. So that is a connected to the emergency system. Or is that going back to Article 700? Interesting. Oh, okay. Okay, so Ryan Jackson has got a comment up here. I'm not. Tells me how many. Okay, that's. Nope. Anybody? I don't see any notes on WebEx on this one. How about on the live stream? We got 62 people. Okay. I have excellent stream hill. It just makes too much sense to GFCI protect waste disposal. In some cases, informational note. I'm looking, somebody had a note on 517. Thought. That's a good point. 517. So they do have a life safety branch. So if I look at 517.31, we have a life safety branch, we have a critical branch, we have the equipment branch. So we have a life safety branch. Flexible power cords of appliances or other utilization connected to the emergency. Maybe what they mean is emergency branch. Let's see what he's saying. Change emergency to essential electrical. References to this system as an emergency system in 517 were removed. All right, so, whoops, close. You got one or two different options here. It's either going to be the emergency branch, or, to your point, the essential electrical system. And I would probably agree that that should actually be your essential electrical system. Let's take a look at our voting on 6, 9, and 13. We've got 21 support, 21 agree. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create another poll, because this is how I roll. I'm going to copy. I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to do a Control V. Add a longer description. Control V. So 517 change. All right, so you can go and you can vote on this one too now. We had 22 and 3 on the last one. We got 29 and 5. So far, we've got some good ideas, I think. 2 people agree to make that a comment. So a public input. Let's do a present. Escape. And we're going to minimize this. Minimize is a new NFPA term. It's smaller-izing it and minimizing it at the same time. So the concept there is to change emergency to essential electrical in 517. And it's 517.31 Charlie 34. And you said there's similar concern for the handbook note in 517.63. So I'm going to put that as being voted on. And it's starting to get traction, so please vote, and vote often. That's my motto. My YouTubers can vote. My Facebookers can vote. And my WebExers can vote. Let's see, what we got, Tom? What's a lot of code talk? I know, Derek. Derek Vick's still in the house, y'all. Make your public inputs, Derek. You can't do it yourselves, but you can always comment here. You can vote anonymously on what you think. CT, bigger from Connecticut. A big thanks for doing these seminars. Thank you, Val. I appreciate it. Appreciate the feedback. Thomas, I just sent you an important email. Thank you, Tommy Davis. Got that one. Jimmy Dollard, what about my beer getting warm? No beer allowed in the NEC. Open source rocks. Michael Bean, you're right, buddy. All right, so Facebook, we're getting engagement on Facebook. I'm getting engagement on my YouTube live stream. All right. Thank you. I have to go. All right, Adam. It just makes too much sense. 454. Just makes too much sense to GFCI protect. All right. So that looks like a good public input as well. Change phrasing of code to something along the line 700. This 517.26, I'm not following you. Zach, you're going to have to give me some more guidance on that one. Clarify whether emergency lighting supply, and I'm not sure about this one. I'm not sure if I understand that one as well. All right. Electric system faults needs a fail safe. That's in a practical safeguarding person. Okay. Time you need to be present in the meeting for a NIT, ma'am. I already answered those. Okay. All right. What else we got? All right. So I'm going to move this over here. And how about, and these are looking good. So how about another one that came in? I'm just looking up at WebEx now. Looking at my comments in WebEx. Knife switches, things change because select coordination. 700 only applies to the life safety branch of the essential electrical system. Yes, but so here's the question, Dawn. In this one here, the question would be, in 517.31, are they specifically referring to the emergency system, meaning the Article 700 system? Are they referencing the emergency, the life safety? No, it's not emergency. That's life safety. So here's the thing. If we put a public input in that changes that, and say, look, guys, panel 517, panel 17, panel 15. We think you guys missed this, that it should not be the emergency system. It should be the essential electrical system. Then they could either say, yes, we agree with you, or no, we don't agree with you. We're not going to change that. We did mean the life safety system, and here are the reasons why. So you can't lose by putting that public input in. So we could do this. We could say revise. And I'm out of coffee. And we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We can come in here and we can say to the essential electrical system. Essential electrical system. We can hit next. Right, so there's the essential electrical system. There's our change. And you gotta love Terra. It highlighted all of this, which is not being modified. We did not change that. I do not know why it underlined it. I'm not even going to mention that in my substantiation. And I'm going to do a rough draft of the substantiation during the NEC 2017 cycle. The figures were modified to remove the safety. I'm just going to make sure I get the language here right. The emergency system, and replaced it to be included in the essential electrical system. This terminology was missed, and this change aligns with this section, title of this section, and newly, and the use of the terms essential versus emergency. All right, and we can hit next. We can hit next, next, and we hit submit. So that would be a public input for, and I'm going to think about that one. I'm going to go back, share it with some of my friends, see what they think. Pull up 517.26. It states the life safety branch must meet the requirements of 700. 517.26. Application of other articles, yes. Yep. Only to specify that other branches are not required to meet 700. Yeah, good point, Zach. I think it's a good, valid public input. I think it's a good, valid public input. Follow suit. You know, you can make a public input that matches this. I can send you this language. You can take a look at it. We can beat it up together. Emergency equipment and other than healthcare to not be labeled life safety. In 517, the emergency system was replaced with the essential and life safety. Just remove connected to ES as the title cover. So Al's saying that 517.31 says requirements for the essential electrical system. And 517.31C3 could just simply say for equipment that requires a flexible connection due to movement. No, I'm sorry. Flexible power cords of appliances or other utilization equipment. Period. And just remove that. Connected to the system. Just say flexible power cords of appliances or other. Now, this is something that the code panel could do. I could make this public input, and I think that this is looking good. Or they can say no. All we're going to do is remove that, and I still get what I want because it improves the language and it fixes the issues. I think that's valid. All right, 517. So that's we made a public input, and that's all I have to say about that.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet. Take a look at the help section in your Alexa app.
I don't know if you guys just heard that, but a certain person, Alexa, is having trouble connecting to the internet. I'm not going to say her name. Okay, so that's that. We talked about the style manual. Okay, so let's take a look. 700 only applies to life safety branch of the essential electrical system per 517.26. I think that was changed on the selective coordination issue. The essential system used to require compliance with 700. Yeah, it is definitely only intended to apply to the life safety branch, and even then to a lesser degree than 700 applies. So I'm just reading some of the comments on WebEx chat. There seems to be an NEC 2020 code conflict between 705.28B1, 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 705.28. Go to chapter 7, 705.28B1, the maximum currents. So it says, and 445.13. Now I have a public input here. I don't know what mine's associating. So I'm changing the conductor ampacity. I'm aligning this with the changes that we did for feeders. Where not elsewhere required to permit in this code, the circuit conductors shall have an ampacity not besides the carry. We removed that in 210 and 215. Not less than the largest of the following. And what I did was I took the language from 215 and we did the same thing in 210. And I'm trying to think if we did it anywhere else. Because we fixed this language and I'm aligning it with what we did there. And we do have the two exceptions. So this is 705.28B. I'm going to see what you said. You said 705.28B1 and 445.13. So 445.13. Let's take a look at 445.13. Chapter 4. 445. 445.13. 455.11, 445.13. Where one sizes generator conductors at 125% and the other to 115%, need to clarify which one use on which applications. 445.13 is the ampacity of conductors for generators. Bushings, generator housings. All right, so there's the ampacity of the conductors from the generator output terminals. All right, so the generator wait a second, hold on. So this is my change. 705.28, right? So 705.28 is where not elsewhere required permitted this code. The maximum current for the circuit shall be the continuous output current rating of the power production equipment, where not elsewhere required permitted in this code. So if it's required in 445, the circuit conductors shall be sized to carry not less than the largest of the following. And this is the 125%. So what I made the change to align this with what we did in 210 and 215. But what Ryan is saying, I don't know if it's Ryan, it's not Ryan, it's somebody else, Steven. What you're saying is that we need to align 445.13 with 705 because 705, I see what you're saying. 705 is more generic. It deals with any of the output conductors. 445 specifically addresses generators. I would say that because it says where not elsewhere required or permitted, the circuit conductor shall be sized to carry not less than the largest of the following. 445 would be elsewhere covered. So you would follow 445 and not 705 because 705 is more of the generic requirement. 445 is specific to generators. But that's I'm going to put that down on my little notes here because I tend to agree with you that there needs to be some correlating in there. Generators, so 705, we're having this discussion. I'm chairing an alternative energy task group. And we're getting into this debate and discussion around the output conductors. Hold on. You want to dial in. So the output, you have to understand what side of the first overcurrent protected device you're at. If you're coming straight from the generator to the first overcurrent device, those are the generator output conductors. They need to be sized in a certain manner. And if I go to 445, 445 says the ampacity of the conductors from the generator output terminals to the first device containing the overcurrent protection shall not be less than 115. So this is ahead of that first overcurrent protected device. Now, this 705 says, where not elsewhere required, the maximum current for the circuit shall be continuous output current rating. At some point, these become a feeder. I'll call you. So I'm going to call somebody here. I'm going to phone a friend who might be able to shed some info on this. Okay, Larry, you are live, just to let you know.
Uh-oh.
Yes, you're live. You had a comment. I saw your text. I'm looking at my watch, and I'm over duty anyway. I'm past my quit time. What's your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on this one? Can you see it?
This is the thoughts on the 445 and 125% and stuff like that, correct?
Yeah, so here's the thing. Steve Brana said there seems to be an NEC 2020 code conflict between 705.28b1, which is the sizing of that conductor, and 445.13, which is the 115%.
So the issue on that is the fact that when you look at 445, that is basically the wiring really from, act like there's no breaker on the generator. That's really the wiring from the generator itself to the first means of overcurrent device. So if there is no overcurrent device on the generator, let's say you take that overcurrent device and set it 50 feet away, that wiring there has to be 115%. And the reason they do that is because you really can't overload a generator. You know, a generator, there's not enough energy there to really put out 150 to 200% for extended period of time. So by UL requirements, once you get above 100%, it'll eventually quit. And so that's why the 115% is there. If you have the overcurrent device on the generator, then everything downstream of that generator is governed by 240. And that's where you start to get into the 125% issue. So once you hit that overcurrent device on the generator, that breaker, then you go to 240, which then you talk about your continuous, non-continuous, and stuff like that. And so I think that will match up with 705. But when you start talking 115%, that's really kind of the internal wiring from the generator to the first overcurrent device. So it's kind of apples and oranges, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so the 705, so I think here's the confusing part. 705 is your interconnected power production sources, blah, blah, blah. And it says, where not elsewhere permitted to go, the circuit conductors, and it's what part of the circuit conductors are they talking about? Are they talking about the circuit conductors between the generator and that first overcurrent device? In that case, it's a 445 thing and not a 705 thing, right?
Correct.
If it is between the first overcurrent device and the panel that it's supplying, then it's not a 705 or a 445, it's a 240 thing.
Correct.
Or a 250 for feeders.
And most of the time, if you're going to take a generator and tie it into something that is basically, let's say you're tying it into a utility, you're going to have some form of overcurrent device in between that line.
Yeah.
In between that feeder.
Right, because the moment you hit that first overcurrent device, it becomes a feeder. But before that overcurrent device, it's a generator, it's a supply circuit. There's no real term for that. You could argue that it is they put a new term. Was it in 705 they put the term power source output circuit is what it is. And that's the conductors between the power production equipment, which in this case would be the generator, and the service or distribution equipment. Actually, it should be the first overcurrent device, right? So that power supply conductor is 115% if it's a generator, but you're in 445. So I would think that 705.28 language is still accurate because it says where not elsewhere required or permitted in this code. That tells you that if it's a generator, you're in B445. You're not going to be doing 705.
But I also think, too, the stuff that you're doing with Tom, that you're doing on that task group is important because 705 was originally geared towards generators. Now it seems like it's gotten away from that to more renewable stuff. And I think we need to be a little more specific when we talk generators in 705.
Yeah. Yeah, and 705, the way this task group is looking at 705 is they're looking at it as like a general requirements to any of these alternative energy sources. And to your point, and to this to Steve's issue, it's causing some confusion because we've got 445 up there that deals with those certain conductors and sizing, and there's probably other things in there too. That sort of not conflict, but just need to be correlated with 445 as a source. So we're going to be taking a look at that, I think.
And so, but the other thing is you got to look at two things here. So most of the time on generators, you either have two setups. You either have a generator with a breaker on it. 9 times out of 10, you have that breaker. So once you have that breaker, it goes to Article 240.
Right.
If you have a system where you're paralleling generators, you typically have some type of paralleling setup with a switchboard or things of that nature, where you run a generator with a feeder from the generator to a paralleling switchboard, and then you put your breaker there, and that's still governed by 445.
Right.
And then when you're trying to tie in to other sources, that's when you kind of go on the output of that breaker, and you're doing something else.
Yeah.
I don't know if I helped or hurt.
No, I think that helped me. I don't see a need. There might be a better way. I think we have to look at 705 to organize it with regard to generators, and in this regard and a few others. The one thing that we did do, and I think this is a task group effort, we're looking at changing and aligning this language with what we did in 210 and 215 with regard to have an ampacity not less than the largest of the following. So when you're not dealing with a generator, we're just aligning the exceptions that we put in 210 and 215 that aren't in this, and bringing that up here. So Yep, and it's just aligning and not making any technical changes. So that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that feedback. That's good.
All right, Tom, keep up the good work.
We're trying, Larry. Thank you for dialing in. Thanks for helping that one out.
All right, take care.
Take care, buddy. All right, so that means that's good. That's good. So we got what else? We got what else? I'm just looking. I know we're over time, but as long as the comments are coming in. Okay, so we had 700 only applies. Article 705.28b1 is for paralleling generation with utility, but so is Article 445. Yeah, Steve. So we do have, and that was what Larry Ayer was pointing out. You know, he put together this task group that I'm chairing on alternative energy, which we like to call it advanced energy. But in any case, I know if if Bill is out there, he'll probably appreciate that one. But in any case, we do have to work on 705 to address various issues with correlating 445 and 705 together. Code for the rest of please. Code for the rest of please. 4 o'clock. I know. I'm over time. It's a feeder regardless. Yes, a feeder, but with an additional name. The conductor in question for 705.28, paralleling generator. Yep, we got that one, Steve. I think 705 is doing exactly what chapters 5 through 7 are supposed to do, modifying the general requirement of chapter 4. Ooh, so Ryan thinks that this trumps 445, which I wouldn't agree with, Ryan. You size that generator output conductor by 445, which is 115%. All about that 90.3. You know what? We could make a song all about that 90.3. Code for the rest is asking for code, the Menti code. Oh, I forgot about that. Hold on. Okay, so I'm going to give you the, oh shoot, I've lost some people already. The code for the finale. Hold on. This is the exit code for the PDH, and you guys hung in there 20 minutes over. Geez, oh man, I apologize. 20 for class attendance end. All right, so I am going to put this up, and I'm going to present, and I'll give you extra credit. Here's the code for the signing out, 996175. Class attendance and 99. This is 23 process and ideas, 996175. We generated some good ideas here, I believe. Please keep them coming. I'm going to keep that NEC. Oh man, Mr. McCamish. And it says, and look, he sent me a note on April. I missed this. Mr. McCamish. Mr. McCamish says, "Hey Tom, when you have a moment, give me your opinion." And that was April 24th. All right. Receptacle location does not equal outlet location. John, I don't disagree with you there. Ryan's point, I'm sure we'll probably see it as a public input. Ryan's point was very interesting. But we're going to have to probably figure out some language around that. In any case, 996175, that's your sign out. That'll help for those who are looking for PDH credits. You know how I flow here. I do the sign in, I do the sign out, I give you your certificates, and I will give you some extra credit. I think maybe this time I'll put a smiley face on the certificate. That'll be the extra credit, all right, for going over a little bit. And Mr. McCamish, I'm going to call you this afternoon, buddy. All right, calculating maximum. Okay, so let me just take a look at my, I'm looking at so remember, NEC 2023pi@gmail.com. Email me your ideas or suggestions on how to improve the NEC. And please, again, share your input, share your ideas. I will, if you send them to NEC 2023pi@gmail.com, I will do everything I can to help you succeed in your public inputs. Remember, it's all about the substantiation, and hopefully, I believe we're gonna be addressing the 705 discussion point. So this was 705 dot. So remember, we got a few task groups going on. 705 is your interconnected. This is something that I'm chairing. If you have an interest, or if you have ideas, I'm passionate around Article 690, 705, any of the, I'm not going to say alternative energy. I'm going to call it the, oh man, Bill had the word, the alternative energy, the whatever energy. If it's PV, if it's wind, any of those items that you think you have some ways to improve the National Electrical Code and you have some ideas, send them to me. I'm chairing a task group, working on that as we speak, always looking for good ideas on how to improve the usability of the NEC and the technical content as well. So we're focused on 705, we're focused on 690, 691, 692, 694, all of these different areas. We're trying to look at the NEC and improve how they're referencing each other, how make sure that they're in alignment with each other. One of the concepts that we're considering is aligning all of them together in the NEC. So you might have a 690, 691, 692, 693, all of those being like we do with Article 500, hazardous locations, trying to keep them together and say we have a general requirements article, and then we have articles that are associated with individual like PV or wind or whatnot. So we've got a lot of great ideas. We're stripping things out of Article 690 and 700, 705, etc., that are already back in chapters 1 through 4. So we don't want to duplicate efforts. We want to keep anything we can back in chapters 1 through 4 and make it so that that these alternative energy solution articles like wind and PV, etc., only include the things that have an exception. All right, so we had a long session, and I apologize for going over and not putting the code up 996175 for class attendance for those of you who are looking to exit. I think I'm going to have another one of these sessions on code changes. Send me some public input. Send me on your ideas, and what I'll do is I will put that information out there and get your ideas, and we'll do another voting session. So Jeff Sargent, Tom, back on the units of measurement discussion, there was a global effort in the 2002 code to move SI units to precede the inch pound units. The NEC is an internationally used and adopted code. So that's a very good point, Jeff, that the NEC is not just used in the NEC in the United States. It's an international document. So, and it's a part of the style manual now, so they probably changed the style manual. All right, everybody, it's Beer 30. Great discussion. I agree with Bill Neitzel. Great discussion. I really appreciate everybody hanging in there, and everybody out in Tube land and Facebook land and WebEx land. So thanks for playing the game and joining in. Derek Fixtel says, keep in mind the scope of 705. It's for systems operating in parallel with the primary source. That's true. So that would be, again, if you're paralleling your generator with the source, that wouldn't include the transfer switch. There might be a generator, but doubtful. Plus, the way 705.28 reads is that if it is permitted elsewhere in the code. Yeah, it's exactly right, Derek. Pointed that out earlier that, if you are operating your generator in parallel and you have 445, but Ryan Jackson pointed out that chapters, well, actually, remember 90.3 changed. We're continuously updating 90.3. 90.3 is not perfect. It has changed considerably over time, and it's, well, not considerably, but it has changed. They said that chapters 1 through 4 apply generally, and 5, 6, and 7 apply to special occupancies, and or modify the requirements in chapters 1 through 7. So chapter 4 can't modify. So that's a good point. if I'm paralleling generators with the utility, and I'm in 705, I don't use the 445 for generators because it says in 90.3, I'm going to call this up. 90.3. I know we're going over, so anybody who's still on, God bless you, I love you. 90.3 says 5, 6, and 7 apply to special occupancy, special equipment, or other special conditions and may supplement or modify the requirements in 1 through 7. So if in 445 we're using 115%, I have to follow what's in 705 because 445 can't supplement and modify what's in 705. Only 5, 6, and 7 can supplement or modify 1 through 7. Chapter 4 can't modify Chapter 7. And if Chapter 7 says 125%, then I can't go back to 445 and say, well, I'm going to follow that instead of this. I think it needs some cleaning up. What do you think, Derek? Well, if my WebEx friends, where's my chat? Oh, I moved it down here. Where not elsewhere required or permitted in this. That language makes 445 govern. I don't know about that, Dawn. And that was my initial read. And that's what I'm going by. I'm sticking to that one. So, all right. 996175. If you haven't done the 996175, then you're too late. I appreciate everybody hanging in there. I am going to I'm going to close out this session. I appreciate it again. I appreciate everybody hanging in there. It was a great discussion. We had some great ideas. Please keep the ideas coming. Remember to send it to NEC 2023 pi@gmail.com. Any of your ideas. I believe I got them all that came in. And we are good to go. So thanks. And I'm going to stop the stream now. So I'm not sure how many people we have on in TubeLand. So I'm going to say thanks, everyone, for attending. Take care. Stay safe. All right. That was on Facebook. Thank you, Mr. Abbasi. Take care, everyone. Stay safe and healthy, please. All right. Still have 41 people. I'm saying so long. I don't have my, oh, you know what I can do? I am going to queue up the, I'm not going to worry about the outro. All right. I'm going to end this in a second here, actually. Okay, everybody. Take care. Thanks, Nihad. Thanks, Daryl Hill, Don Gannier, Jim Dollard, anybody else who, and Larry Ayer for dialing or calling in. I appreciate that. Or let me call you. And take care and God bless. And remember, stay safe and healthy in this time of Corona. Have a Corona on me. Not the bad kind, the good kind. I'm going to end my stream. How do I end my stream? I'm going to end the WebEx first. Stop sharing. Thanks, everybody on the WebEx. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Okay, I am going to stop that. And oh, I can't end the meeting. I have to say file, save as, chat, because the chat is where it's at. There was a lot of good feedback, a lot of good inputs. So NEC 2023 chat, save that, and now I'm closing. We'll see you guys on WebEx. The meeting. Right. For my tubers out there. All right, so thank you, be safe, and all that jazz. I am going to close this. And I've got to figure out how to close Facebook too. Concurrent viewers. Where's my, that's my live stream. Here's my Facebook and end video. See you guys on Facebook. Take care. I'm ending you. And you end this live video now, you will be able to choose if you want to save or delete it. Okay, I'm going to say end. And I'm going to say done. There it is. Right. All right, so that means I'm still streaming on YouTube. Thanks a lot, Felix. Appreciate it, Felix. God bless. Take care, buddy. Be safe. Diego, thanks for dialing in. Mr. Nightsoul, closing on beer 30. All right, I think I got everything. All right, so there's my live chat. I'm going to copy that because that's where it's at. Control C. Come over to my Word document. Make a new page. Control Enter. Control V. All right, I'm going to go File, Save As, and Browse. Corona Tech. 7. NEC 2023. I'm going to call this YouTube chat. Okay. Close that. And my stream is excellent. Everything worked great. Goodbye to everybody on YouTube land. I'm ending my stream. Take care. And we'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's program. I'll look at the time. Tomorrow's program is, I think, at 11:30. So tomorrow's program is at 11:30 Eastern time. If you haven't got the invite, send me an email. It's out there on Eventbrite. It's on my LinkedIn site. I use LinkedIn a lot to advertise, and Facebook. That's pretty much my only 2 advertising channels. So check those out. Tomorrow's discussion is going to be on selective coordination using the circuit breaker tables. A lot of people don't know about those tables, and a lot of people misuse those and misunderstand how they're read. All right, so